So in the last video, we made some progress on being able to emit an event when the left mesh box intersects the thing we're trying to pick up. Um, to go through this, let's recap. So we have an XR manager, which is listening on every frame to the movement of the hand. So that emits this signal of left hand moved or right hand moved. We also listen for what are called the components. And so we are emitting messages that look like left squeeze or left trigger and passing the details of that. It can be pressed is true, touched, which can be true or false, a value between 0 and 100, axes, which I think only applies to the joystick on it, and an ID, like button X or button A. So as part of the setup for each controller, we set up the hand position, the component, and then we also set up this thing called a grip manager. And the grip manager will listen for the model onloaded, which means that there's a controller model that is loaded right now, and perhaps we can suppress that or upgrade this later. What this will do is it will create an additional grab mesh, which is just a box right now. It's a small box that is on the inside of our palm where you would normally grab something. And I'm using this to use one mesh to detect intersection with another mesh, the thing we're trying to grab. So this mesh, for debugging purposes, we're going to show the bounding box and we're going to set its visibility so it's slightly transparent. And we're setting it on the inside of our mesh. So I noticed that the default position for the XR controllers, they do have a position, and when this is initially loaded, this will offset it a bit to be on the inside of our palm for left and right. Finally, we listen to the particular hand grip, and I've made this a constant because the Chrome extension that I'm using is called the XR emulator, and for some reason it doesn't actually have a squeeze button on it. Instead, if you press one of those things, you get the trigger, even though I think on the emulator it says squeeze. So right now I have to remember just to remove this and put back squeeze so that when we're in the testing in the Oculus Quest, it works correctly. Otherwise, we have to click the trigger to grab something, but I want to click that grip button to grab something. So we're listening for that particular message, and then this message could be very noisy because remember that it's emitted for all of the changes on this component, which means that every value between 0 and 1, as you slowly squeeze, could be generating 100 messages of these things. And we want one distinctive grabbed or not grabbed. So I've opted to look at the pressed, because if you're touching it lightly, the pressed is false. So pressed only becomes triggered when you kind of press it, at least I think 50%. So that's the pressed. So we're mapping it because that's the only thing I care about. And then you will not get another message as long as it continues to be true. And then we're filtering to listen for the true ones. And then here we check to see if there is a grabbed mesh, meaning try to find one. So this grab mesh will loop through all the interactable meshes in the scene and return when it finds one. So it's a find intersection, otherwise it will return nothing. And this is assigned into the class attribute or property called the grabbed mesh. And if there is one, then we can emit that we're starting the grab. So this is still an internal message, and I'm just debating now whether we need to forward this over here. Would anybody else care? Left start grab, right start grab, maybe. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to parent the object should I parent it in here? Yeah, if nobody else needs to know whether your grab started, can't you just emit that as an outgoing message? I think it might be useful to other people, our own code. So we'll have this layer of indirection. All right, so we're saying we grab this, and we emit this message, and over here, let's parent it. So we're going to get the value here, and this value is going to contain the entity ID. But actually, we already have the grabbed mesh, because if we're in here, actually we should only deal with one of them, so it should be like so. You're going to listen to this hand, grab start, and then you will parent it. So this grabbed mesh set parent, which means that wherever it is, we want to keep its position relative to the hand, and it will be this grab mesh. It's not a great name. Okay, so we have this. And then I think we can emit an outgoing message to everyone else to say we've grabbed it. So I would like to, before I do that, I would like to see what the position and also offset is. After grab, this grabbed mesh, what's the position, and also grab mesh, what is the rotation quaternion? And maybe we'll just put out what it was before grab. And let's see what happens now. have to align this all over again. It's so far. Let's get up close. Ugh. Okay. That should be an intersection. So that is hopefully the left. Squeeze, unsqueeze. And okay, so I got before the grab. Found intersection grab. Okay, before the grab, it was 0 and 0. And after the grab, it's relative to the this thing. And then before the grab, it's this. After the grab, it's this. Okay, let's leave it grabbed and see what happens. So here, it remains squeeze. We never unparented it, so. And what happens if we kind of move this fella? It is parented to it. Okay. Let's continue here. Okay. So we want to add a message for when we let go, which is going to be similar to this. The only difference is we're listening for if you have something selected and now you let go, then that should be a grab end. So I'm going to copy all of this. So again, filtering on the one message that we care about, want distinct changes, but I want the opposite. So when your pressed becomes false, changes from true to false specifically, and that this is something. So grabbed mesh has to have been there. Then this grabbed mesh should equal null now. We want to let go of it. And then we're going to hit that the grab ended. So then up here, if we get that the grab ended, I think what we do is we just unset the parent. Let's see, in the previous position, I could use this grabbed mesh, so I could unset that. If it were still set, I could say this grabbed mesh. We don't have to look it up. Set parent to be null. That would free it up. Then you could just emit something else. Remove this. Console line. We're unsetting this. However, I'm not sure when we want to keep this. Also, would there be any kind of race condition if these are listening independently? I could feel like you only need to register listening to the grab end if you're in the context of having listened on a grab start. So we're listening to this. This suddenly became true. That we could do a switch map to listen for let's not make it too complicated. Okay, so we have this. We're emitting something that's start. And we have this. If you are grabbing something here, we're unsetting it. And that's useful because we would be able to pick it up again if we did this. Well, we don't really care. We're going to find it again when we do this. This, let's go. So the only race condition is if they're both processing at the same time, and this sets it to null while you're grabbing it. Which, I don't know if that can happen. Even so, because they're both listening on the grabby thing, I don't think these messages can come in at the same time. So unset it. We don't have to unset it here though. Maybe. This only checks. It doesn't rely on this memory. We're grabbing that. That's only convenient for here. And then here, this is the memory to see, hey, were we holding on to something? If so, then we can say we are stop holding it. And then over here, if we stop holding it, then we can say grab mesh now. We really unparent it and then unset it. Maybe a little confusing. But I'm going to take a break and try it out on the Quest.